Hi, welcome back to another Mud and Blood visual review. I'm Matt, one half of the Mud and Blood podcast hosting team. And this month we are going to be looking at Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4th Edition, also affectionately known as WFRP 4th Edition. Before I jump into the actual visual review of this, I need to give the usual blurb for people new to our channel. And that is, this is not a full review of this game. We are only going to be looking at, or I'm only going to be looking at the visual elements of this game. The reason for that is we do a full audio review of all of our games on our channel, and we have done a 2.5-hour review of this game. You can find the link for that at mbcast.co/43. I'll put a link down in the description below as well. Our review covers everything to do with this game. We talk about mechanics, the setting, usability, approachability, accessibility, crunch factor, all sorts of stuff. Myself and my co-hosts are also big fans of WFRP. We've been playing since for decades. I started with 1st edition, and I've played all the previous 3 editions. My co-host Liam has played editions 1 and 2, not the 3rd edition, but anyway. And we're also currently recording an actual play of this 4th edition for our channel as well. Anyway, that is all audio only, nothing to do with videos. So if you look at our channel here on YouTube, you're only going to see visual reviews. They're all like this. They're all accompanying a full audio review. So, that out of the way, let's jump in and look at the visual elements of this game. So, first thing to talk about before I jump over to my desk, where I'll open the book up, have it more of a close-up of the actual spreads, is the cover, the format, the size, that sort of thing. As you can see, there's a really nice bit of artwork which ties back to the 1st edition cover, which is in a matte finish. In fact, the whole wraparound cover here is in a matte finish. Sorry, it's not wraparound. That assumes that it's the same picture going around. It's 2 different images. But yeah, anyway, it's all matte finish with the exception of some embossed elements. So the title here, the subtitle down here, these are embossed in a glossy embossed style. The spine has embossed writing there. Every element that's not black on the spine is embossed. Also shiny. On the back, the bits at the bottom here are also embossed. So yeah, it feels, I quite like a matte finish on my hardback books, so it feels quite nice in the hand. And having those little embossed glossy elements just kind of makes it pop a little bit. It feels really nice. The other thing to talk about is format. You can probably get an idea of how big it is just by me holding it here, holding it up near my head, although you don't know how big my head is. It's actually letter format, and for those of you who don't necessarily know what that means, it basically means 8.5 inches wide by 11 inches tall. And if, like me, you use logical measurements, in metric that is 22 centimeters across by 28 centimeters down, more or less. We don't get any fancy kind of gilt on the page edges or anything like that, which is fine. This isn't a limited edition or anything like that. Talking about the spine, then we have an oversewn binding, and as you can see here, hopefully, it doesn't have a rounded spine; it has a flat spine, which no big deal. Anyway, the other thing to quickly talk around is the page weight. I have no idea what page weight is. I'm just going to kind of talk about it. It doesn't feel cheap. It's got a satin, the pages have a satin finish, so they're quite nice. It's not super light, it's not super heavy, but this book clocks in at 352 pages, so it feels just kind of the right level of quality. And from Cubicle 7, having seen some other books, this is the sort of quality you expect. Premium product, yeah, as you'd come to expect from one of the big names in tabletop role-playing publishing. Okay, that out of the way, let's jump over to my desk where I'll show the spreads and talk a little bit more about the actual visual elements inside the book. Okay, so here we have the book on my desk, and let's open it up. Before I open it up, one thing I forgot to mention is that there is no ribbon in this book. We often expect to see ribbons in a lot of hardcover premium books, and I was a little bit surprised that this one didn't have it, especially because it's quite crunchy. There's a lot of referencing that's required. Anyway, just something to point out. When we open up, let's have a look at the end papers. The end papers have this gorgeous map of the Reichland, which is the region that this core rulebook focuses on. You do have a map of the Empire in one corner and a map of the Old World in the other corner. But this map is gorgeous. It's probably one of the best maps I've ever seen, to be honest. I'll talk about it and gush about it a little bit in the full review. We have exactly the same map on the back end papers as well. Okay, so opening it up, we have a full page image of a kind of Warhammer Fantasy skull. We have the table of contents, which actually covers 3 different pages, so it's quite an in-depth table of contents. We have the credits page on one page over here, and then we jump into the game. There's a 2-page introduction, which does the usual thing of talking about what role-playing games are, how to use this book, dice that are used, that sort of thing. And then it jumps into these full-page spreads here. There are, I believe, 5, I'll count them in a second, but I believe there are 5 of these double-page full art spreads, full color spreads, which tell the story of this troll slayer as he's kind of entering the Empire, as he's traveling through the Empire. I shouldn't say troll slayer, I should just say slayer. Yeah, it's worth pointing out this is the 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th. Oh, 6 of them. It's worth pointing out that these spreads are the only full-page spreads in the entire book. With one exception, towards the back, there is this Reichland timeline, or this, guide to the Reichland, this one here. That is also a full-page, technically a full-page art spread. Although it's not really the kind of art you would expect to see in a book of, like, some kind of heroic action or characters or anything. It's more like as you can see, it's an image of a book to kind of introduce the chapter. Anyway, this is the only other full-page spread of art in the entire book. So once you get past that bit of art, we've got a little kind of introduction or foreword so this is in character by Magister Alana Grauman, who basically talks a little bit about the Empire, kind of intro to the Empire from an in-person character. Right, let's talk about the visual elements, the layout of the pages of the book itself. As you can see, it's got a 2-column spread. For the majority of the book, we have call-out boxes which look like this. They're kind of like a gray, a very light gray box with ragged edges. Every chapter has the name of the chapter at the top with this skull art. We have these little chapter number ribbons at the top corners. And we have some page bordering art, as you can see, with kind of skulls. We have the... I think that's Moorsleep, the Chaos Moon. Anyway, some slight graphic elements going down the sides, and at the bottom we have a kind of a ragged line with a page number. We have the chapter name at the top here, and we have Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay on the left. So, fairly standard layout. It looks nice, but they're not trying to win any awards for groundbreaking layout like we've seen in games like Cult or Degenesis. The other thing to point out is the artwork. There is artwork throughout this book. There's a lot of artwork. For the most part, it's full color like this. The style, we'll talk about that in a minute, but the style tends to be very different to what the previous editions, well, at least the first 2 editions of Warhammer have had. Rather than having black and white line art, we tend to have this color art, and it's slightly more colorful than we've come to expect. I'm not going to really say much more about that. I'm not going to give opinions. We talk about it a bit more on the review. What else can I talk about here that you can see? Not much. Let's jump ahead. One thing I did want to say is these ribbons are only they bleed up to the top edge of the book, which means when you look at the book from the top, you can kind of see, I'm not sure how well you can see this here, but you can see a variety of different colors, and you could jump to one of the different chapters or the next chapter just by looking at the colors. Unfortunately, in use, when you're actually reading a book, you tend to look on this side of the book here, the side, and you can't really tell where the next chapter is just by glancing at it. So in hindsight, it might have been nicer to have had these ribbons actually bleed over onto this edge as well, so you could quickly find the next chapter just by looking at by color coding. Anyway, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this review going through every single page or anything like that. I just want to give a little highlight of how things look. One thing worth pointing out is that we have a full page devoted to every single career in the book. There are 64 careers, I believe, and every single one of them has a spread which looks like this. It has the name of the career at the top. It has a picture for the career, and it has a little blurb about it here. So this is all fluff elements here, and then you have the actual crunchy bits, which is in this call out box. You get a nice little stat block at the top here, which shows your current path level in the career and how that affects to which of these characteristics you can advance. Yeah, and then each of the individual career paths, there are 4 for each, have a little blurb about effectively what the career skills, talents, and trappings are for that career. Not a lot else to talk about, but as you can see, if I just quickly flick through here, there are obviously 64 pages. There's quite a lot for every single career, and each of them gets a nice image. The only other thing I want to talk about then really are the tables, and to do that, I'm going to go to my little bookmark here. Before I do that, I just wanted to show, we do mention one piece of art in our audio review. I haven't actually looked up that exact piece of art, but I'm showing a similar one here, which is that some of this art has a kind of halo effect going around them, which makes it a little bit feel a bit comic booky. This is a good image to show that. As you can see, all of the characters have a halo glowing around them, and in fact, on this page as well, even this character has like a backlit halo around the character. So it kind of gives a slightly more heroic feel to the images, but that's what we meant in our audio review when we were talking about it. Talking about not all the images are black and white. This is sepia toned. This is grayscale. Another grayscale image. And here we have an inked image, although it's been colored to be kind of a bluish gray. So basically saying not all of the art is in the same style. Not all of it is this full color with a halo effect, etc. Some of it is a bit more traditional looking. Okay, then going on very slightly from that, we have the critical tables. And this is the obvious place to look when we're going to show off tables, because Warhammer is famous for its critical injury tables. And in fact, we have 5 full pages of critical injury tables in this edition, which is kind of cool. But if we just look at the tables, this is what you can expect through the rest of the book. When they are not sticking to the two-column format, obviously they go full spread like this, which makes a lot of sense. And as you can see here, it's very legible, it's very easy to read, and the way they've differentiated the rows to make it easier to read is they've just used 2 different shadings of gray. And can't really complain about that. It looks fantastic. It's really easy to like see the different rows because of the 2 different shadings. No issues with legibility or ease to read there. Okay, so that's basically format and how things look. I'm just going to flick very quickly towards the back so you can just get a brief idea of how things go. The bestiary has entries with images for most of the beasties. In fact, possibly all of the beasties that are named in here. Looks like they actually are. I haven't actually looked at that to see if that was the case or not, but it looks that way. We'll go to this page because it's got the infamous Famir on it. Basically, there's a fluff blurb about the monster or the creature. We have a stat block. We have their traits, and we have their options. And traits, if we jump to the back of the bestiary, the creature traits cover 6 full pages. There are a lot of creature traits. This is how they're differentiated. You don't get full skill stat blocks. You basically get their characteristics and what traits they have, so what kind of makes them stand out from the other beasties. So it's an interesting take on rather having a full kind of character sheet type stat block with skills and talents. You get these traits instead. Okay. Then what do we have at the back in terms of appendices and things? The only appendix we have is a character sheet, which is on a 2-page spread. Obviously, you can download this at the Cubicle 7 website. There are fan-made ones as well if you don't particularly like this one for some reason. My favorite is by Dave Graffam, who did some really amazing ones for 2nd edition as well. He's done some cool ones for 4th edition. Anyway, index, we have 5 pages, I believe. No, 6 pages of index. And we have a little advert for Rough Nights and Hard Days, which is out now. You can actually go buy that, which is an adventure compendium. And that's it. That is the Warhammer Fantasy 4th Edition visual review finished. Thanks for watching, and tune in next month, or in fact, in a couple of weeks for our next one.